Okay, guys, I had so much to say in that last video about Bernard Pollard. I was trying to keep it short, but I had so much to say about that. I didn't even get to the second thing I wanted to talk about in that, which was like this top 10 list from ESPN. So I had to just make it its own video. So it, again, these lists are made to get people mad, to talk about them, because otherwise nobody would visit their sites. Nobody truly cares that much about what people at ESPN think anymore. That's why you're seeing so many of these like independent, just random people on social media who are just giving their own opinions on sports and their own analysis of sports and film and all that. You're seeing those channels, they're starting to just keep growing and growing and growing, because at the end of the day, people are more comfortable, and this applies to me too. I'm more comfortable just going to just like a random person on social media who they have their own page, their own YouTube channel, their own whatever channel, where they talk about sports and they give their opinion on these things. I'm more comfortable just going to those pages and those platforms than going to ESPN. I'm not going, it's a complete waste of time. It's just like ESPN is a dumpster fire, and they're just they need to stay relevant. And that's the point of these top 10 lists. So I had to just get that out there. That's clearly the point of these lists. But, obviously the list was out. There was no Lamar Jackson mentioned on that list. Actually, I'm gonna just quickly go over the 10 people on the list real quick. Just name them real quick. So they got Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Tom Brady, Joe Burrow, Matthew Stafford, Justin Herbert, Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson, Dak Prescott. Mind you, I don't have an issue with any of these quarterbacks. I really don't have a problem with any of these quarterbacks. These are they're very good at what they do, but to not put Lamar Jackson in this list is laughable. It's straight up laughable, especially when he's accomplished more than 70 to 80% of that list. And you're gonna really sit here with a straight face and say that Lamar Jackson's not top 10? How does that make sense? Lamar Jackson's top 5. It doesn't. It's this list is clearly just meant to get people a little triggered, because they know anytime they could find a controversial spin to a story that has to do with Lamar Jackson, they're gonna go for it, even though Lamar Jackson doesn't give them a whole lot to work with when it comes to controversial story. Lamar Jackson doesn't give you that sort of controversy that Deshaun Watson is giving you. He mostly just minds his business and wins games. But he's still, for whatever reason, Lamar's still a polarizing figure. So this was just a great opportunity in their eyes. That's what I think it boils down to. You have a lot of people who love referring to Lamar as an athlete instead of a quarterback, which is a way of sneak dissing him. They're just trying to in a very subtle way. It's very passive aggressive, man. They're trying their best to in a very sneaky, subtle way, just disrespect him and say he's not a real quarterback, when obviously he is, and he's accomplished plenty. He has a 37-11 record as a starter, and I said 37-11 and not 37-12 because in that Browns game he got injured in the first quarter, and Tyler Huntley took over for the rest of that game, so I don't really count that. But even if you count that game, still he's 37-12 as a starter. Out of all those players that were on that top 10 list, the only player younger than him is Justin Herbert. Everybody else is older than him, so he's extremely young. Has won more games than many of them. He broke Dan Marino's record for most wins by a quarterback under the age of 25, which is a record that none of these quarterbacks on that list will ever reach, because many of them already passed 25 and they couldn't do it. And even for Justin Herbert, he's not gonna break that record by 25. If I'm not mistaken, Justin Herbert's 24. So off rip, he's not even gonna have enough time to pull it off. I'm double checking it now. Justin Herbert is 24, and he's only won 15 games. Man, he's not none of these people are breaking that record. You have people that keep putting out this narrative that Lamar Jackson's an inaccurate quarterback. But Lamar Jackson's career completion percentage is 64.1%. Tom Brady's career completion percentage is 64.2, and nobody would have the nerve to call Tom Brady an inaccurate passer. Like, nobody would have the nerve to. Nobody would have the nerve to. Like, the dude is an MVP and only the second unanimous MVP in history. Like, why do we keep having to go over these points to remind people that this is an elite quarterback we're talking about? Like, Lamar's touchdown to interception ratio is 2.7 to 1. And we're gonna get into some of these quarterback stats real quick. Like, but his career touchdown to interception ratio is 2.7 to 1. And that's with him having a rough year last year, where he threw more interceptions than he normally does. In a normal year, like, Lamar's touchdown to interception ratio is usually like 3.5 to 1. Something, really like 4 to 1. But I'm gonna start at number 10. We're gonna go through this list, man, because like this is silly. At number 10, they got Dak Prescott. I like Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott is really good. All of these quarterbacks are good, but still, at the end of the day, no, you should not be putting Dak Prescott over Lamar Jackson. Like I said, Lamar's TD to interception ratio is 2.7 to 1. Dak is 2.86 to 1, which again, yeah, that's a little bit higher, but again, by a very small margin. Also, Dak is like 3-4 years older than Lamar. He's several years older than Lamar. He's played two more seasons. He's played 2 more seasons than Lamar, and mind you, he's had 2.5 more seasons as a starter than Lamar. But yet still, Lamar is already on pace to pass him in wins in the very near future. Because I think Dak Prescott to date only has like 53 wins. Lamar, again, has only been a starter for like, 2.5 seasons? Something like that. 2.5 to, maybe 3 seasons now. And he's already at 37. Like, he's like that would more or less put you at an average of like 11 to 12 wins a season. So he's definitely going to pass him very quickly. Especially, like, depending on how things play out with the Cowboys this year. Many people think the Cowboys might struggle a little bit because you look at teams like the Eagles, they got better. You look at the Commanders, they kind of improved. So who knows? They might struggle bad this year. And mind you, Dak has a less impressive career than Lamar while having better weapons. He has a better offensive line. He had arguably 3 number 1 receivers playing at one point or another with CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup, Amari Cooper. You could argue that Cedric Wilson was an underrated receiver that, when he was there too. It depends. We'll see how he works out. I think Cedric Wilson went to like the Dolphins or something, so we'll see how that works out. But still, point is, Dak had better weapons. Still underachieved compared to what Lamar has done so far. Like, there's several stats related to them that are pretty identical. Dak has averages 7.6 yards per attempt and 11.5 yards per completion. Lamar averages 7.7 yards per attempt and 11.7 yards per completion. So Lamar edges him out there, but it's still, neck and neck. But the difference is Lamar's accomplishments and accolades that he's accomplished in this time period has been more impressive. And also, like, Dak's record in the playoffs is 1-3. The same thing people are critiquing Lamar for being 1-3. Dak has played more games, started more games, and has been in the NFL longer, and still has the same amount of wins as Lamar. So how could you put him over Lamar? That doesn't make sense. Deshaun Watson. Listen, Deshaun Watson, I'm gonna go into next. I'm not even gonna acknowledge all the allegations and stuff. I'm just gonna talk about just him playing. And again, he's a good player. But again, you look at some major stats like the touchdown interception ratio, like, it's not that far off. He's 2.8 to 1. Again, Lamar was 2.7 to 1 while having a bad year. By next year, that number is going to go up dramatically. Like, he's going to go right back to being over 3 touchdowns to 1 easily. But also, Deshaun Watson has played 1 full year longer, 1.5 years longer as a starter, and he has a far worse record than Lamar Jackson. A far worse record, though. Like, he's already lost more games than Lamar. Like Deshaun's record is 28-25. And then also, Deshaun hasn't played in 2 years. And he's probably going to get suspended for this year. So by the time Deshaun plays, there's a good chance like 3-4 years will have passed since people have seen Deshaun Watson play in an NFL game. You can't guarantee that he's going to come out here and look elite. You can't guarantee he's going to be top 10. You simply can't. You know, he still looks like he's in shape, but until he actually goes out there and plays, you're not going to be able to know for sure if he's still in game shape. People constantly critique Lamar, try to like throw shots by saying, oh, well, he struggles in the playoffs. Listen, Deshaun Watson's record in the playoffs is 1-2. So he's played one less game than Lamar, but he's also only won one game. And mind you, the last time we saw Deshaun in the playoffs, do y'all remember what happened? Most people forgot. Last time he was in the playoffs, the Chiefs played the Texans. Mind you, I could have sworn at like halftime, it was either the first quarter or at halftime, the Texans were up like 21-0 on the Chiefs. But the final score of that game was 51-31. That's the Chiefs beat them 51-31. Embarrassing. That's the year the Chiefs won the Super Bowl too. You know, they also got Russell Wilson there. You know, I like Russell Wilson. I like all these quarterbacks. I don't have nothing against these quarterbacks, but, you know, I kind of want to give a pass for Russell Wilson because, to me, the only quarterbacks I think you should truly argue could be over Lamar on this list are, like, Aaron Rodgers, Pat Mahomes, Russell Wilson. Oh, Tom Brady, too, because Tom Brady's on this list. But outside of that, those are the only ones I think you could truly argue, yeah, you could put this over him. And if you take away the Super Bowl from Russell, even then it's not that much of an argument either, because then all of a sudden I'm gonna lean towards Lamar no matter what. But again, like I said, I think I would give Russell Wilson a pass. But then next you got Justin Herbert. And I'm like, Justin Herbert's a great player too. They're all great, but at the end of the day, he's yet to make the playoffs. Y'all are critiquing Lamar for quote-unquote struggling in the playoffs. Justin Herbert's struggling to get to the playoffs. And he has arguably a better roster around him, especially a better offense. And he's still struggling to get in the playoffs. You can't use the fact that he's in a tough conference as an excuse. The AFC North is arguably the toughest division of all time. It's constantly a dogfight in the AFC North. And Lamar has still won the division twice already. Like, Justin Herbert just came into the league 2 seasons ago, and he already has a worse record than Lamar Jackson. He's already lost more games.
I put emphasis on it.
You know, then another person they have on this list is Matt Stafford. Again, I think a part of that's just recency bias because, you know, they did win, to his credit, yes, they did just win the Super Bowl. And that's really nice. Again, he's a talented quarterback, but he's a quarterback who underachieves most of the time. Like he spent 12 years in Detroit being a perpetual loser. And you can't put that all on the Lions, because at the end of the day, the Lions throughout those years, they gave him some really good receivers. There was a couple of years where they had a decent defense, where they had prime players like Ndamukong Suh. Like, the dude Matt Stafford, his whole career has played with a far better list of weapons than what Lamar has so far, and he only just now had some sort of success. It's big success, obviously, because it's the Super Bowl, but still, up until this point, he's been a perpetual loser, and he's played with Megatron, Golden Tate, Kenny Galladay, Marvin Jones, now Cooper Kupp, Odell Beckham Jr., Deshaun Jackson for a brief period of time, Robert Woods. Like, look at that long list of receivers, bruh. And even with this current team for the Rams, he's still in a couple of those games almost ended up losing anyway. If the Bengals had a good offensive line, Matt Stafford was not winning that Super Bowl. If number 3 on the San Francisco 49ers, I believe his name was like Quintarius Tart or something like that. if he didn't have butterfingers when it came to that interception, that terrible pass that was about to be an interception that Matt Stafford threw, that was right in his hands that he dropped. If he didn't drop that, listen, the Rams weren't even gonna make the Super Bowl. And then even before that, when the Rams played the Buccaneers, listen, they were very close to letting Tom Brady pull off another epic comeback. Again, it's no disrespect to Matt Stafford, but at the end of the day, you're talking about a guy who's, again, had more to work with. My point is, he's had more to work with in his career. He's just offensively, he's had more to work with in his career than Lamar Jackson. But yet, in his career, for the most part, up until just this past season, he's been a perpetual loser. And you're gonna put him in a top 10 quarterback list, mind you, he's like 35. And you're gonna put him in a top 10 quarterback list? I don't know. I personally would not put him over Lamar Jackson. Then you got Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow, again, excellent quarterback. I like Joe Burrow, but I am still biased. Joe Burrow's record is 12-13-1. They still have similar yards per attempt and yards per completion, because Joe Burrow is averaging 7.9 yards per attempt, 11.6 yards per completion. And again, before Joe Burrow got Jamar Chase, he still was performing, but at the same time, this is the difference that game-changing receiver makes. Because even with him having weapons like T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd, there's no guarantee they were gonna get over the hump of the Chiefs like they did without a guy like Jamar Chase. And also, many people could argue. I'm trying to be fair, because again, I'm not saying these quarterbacks don't deserve to be in a top 10, but to leave Lamar off this list is just laughable. Because even though Joe Burrow has made the Super Bowl, at the end of the day, he didn't win. And also, when you look at his career in totality so far, he hasn't accomplished as much as Lamar yet. He hasn't. And you could also make an argument that he's at risk of being a one-season wonder. He could. Because there's no guarantee he's going to come right back and repeat what he just did just now. He might, because the only issue they had in that Super Bowl was their offensive line, and they fixed that this offseason. But there's still no guarantee. Our division's too tough to guarantee that. Next on that list was Tom Brady. I just said I think you still Tom Brady's he's the GOAT, so I'm gonna give that a pass. After Tom Brady was Josh Allen. Again, Josh Allen, great quarterback, but at the end of the day, he's still not as accomplished as Lamar. He has the worst record. His record is 39-21. He only has 2 more wins than Lamar, but he started in 11 more games. People keep talking about how Lamar has accuracy issues, but people forget that before the Bills brought in Stephon Diggs and Cole Beasley to a lesser extent, but more importantly, Stephon Diggs, which was an elite receiver who was just on a okay team in Minnesota. They brought him in, and he made the difference. People forget that Josh Allen's first 2 seasons, he was looking like he was just looking like a bum. He was looking like just a bust. His record before Stephon Diggs got there was 15-12. So what does that tell you? That tells you, hey, without an elite receiver, at least in the past, he has improved to the point where maybe without Stephon Diggs he can still prosper. But at the end of the day, the fact remains, without that receiver, he couldn't get it done. And people, to get back to the accuracy point, people keep talking about Lamar's not accurate, this and that, but to this day, Josh Allen's career completion percentage is only 62%. It is what it is. It's only 62%, whereas Lamar's is 64%. And people keep talking about accuracy. And even to this day, Lamar still, even with him having a rough end to his season, Lamar still to this day has a better touchdown to interception ratio than Josh Allen. Josh Allen's touchdown to interception ratio is 2.23 to 1, whereas like I said, Lamar's is 2.7 to 1. But people are talking about accuracy. People are talking about, like, oh, can he be consistent? People are talking about, can he throw? People are critiquing Lamar, saying Lamar, the way he plays is dangerous. I'm like, have you ever watched a Bills game? Have you watched the Bills game? Listen, Lamar is a much safer runner than Josh Allen. Go and watch a Bills game and come talk to me about how reckless you think Lamar is when he runs. Josh Allen, sometimes he just throws his body into people. Like, I'm just in a very dangerous way. Perfect example. Go back and watch the game where it was the Bills against the Buccaneers. Go watch the full game. Not the highlights. Go watch the full game. And then tell me that Josh Allen isn't a reckless runner. Josh Allen is a very reckless runner. The last two on the list were Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers. I'll still give him a pass. I'm biased, obviously, because I think Lamar Jackson's really not even top 5. Really, I think he's top 3. But I'm trying to be fair and say top 5. Obviously, top 10. But yeah, I would give Aaron Rodgers and Pat Mahomes a pass, because again, Patrick Mahomes, he's still in his prime, and he obviously the Super Bowl, and the same thing with Aaron Rodgers. He's still, even though he's old, he's still playing like it's his prime. So yeah, again, this list is still funky to me, but that's the point. It's just it's meant to troll. It's meant to some degree troll and get people talking, because otherwise, nobody would care about this. If this list was perfect, nobody would care. But at the end of the day, let me know what your thoughts are. Let me know in the comment section, what do you think about this list? Where do you think Lamar Jackson would rank or should rank on this list?